Hello!
Hello Rasmir, and hello viewer. Welcome to Curious Monkey Gaming. In this video I'm going to show you 7 different spots on the valley map that are interesting or easy or fun or beautiful to build on. So let's have a look at the map. We've got a very easy to reach location just west of Gostovia. Going a bit further west along the river, we have the river Crossroads with lots of roads and bridges. Then a bit more wild and a bit more secluded, there's a lake down near Jezerica. Denica also has a lake. There's a swampy landscape in case you want something a bit more creepy and wet. Hornica also has a very pretty lake. And maybe my favorite spot, north of Branica, there's a mine, there's lots of rolling landscape, which kind of reminds me of the Shire. So if we exit Gostovia going to the west, just follow the road for a little while. Anywhere after the first branch of the road, there is a whole bunch of land over here. If we look at the map, this is where we are. It's just a nice area. You're close to the river, you're close to town, tons of resources, not too far away from other towns. It's a bit sloped, but it's easy land to build on. There are not a whole lot of obstacles, there are lots of trees for resources, and it's pretty simple to build there. It's somewhere certainly that I've built. It's actually quite forested, but there are lots of open areas. It can be quite nice to just leave the trees here, to gather your logs from somewhere else and build, for example, in a clearing like this and end up with a nicely forested village. If we head west along the road, we end up at this spit of land where a lot of different crossroads come together. There are 2 bridges here. This one goes up to Tutki and the one over here goes up to Hornica, making it very easy and convenient to get around. Lots of water, lots of land space, and it's very flat. So not a bad place to build at all, especially for the options of the other towns. From one of those towns, you can always fast travel back to Gostovia if you need to. This area is mostly full of birch trees, which are the worst kind of trees for resources, but they're very pretty in the autumn. It's also, if you ask me, kind of boring, but I tend not to like flat open land. It's really easy to build in. It's very tempting when you're first starting out to build in a place like this, just because there's nothing in your way and there's plenty of space and everything's flat. But every time I've built in a place like this, I've always ended up honestly kind of bored with it relatively quickly. If you follow the creek south from our last location, you'll eventually come to a little bridge and a lake where the creek ends. This is a lovely spot if you wanted to build a fishing village. It's got lots of trees, it's got lots of resources all over the place. It's beautiful. The lake is gorgeous and a very large lake. And the cute little fishing village of Jezerica is quite nearby, so you can go there to fast travel, sell things, hire villagers, etc. There is a mine not too far away. You can walk through the mountains. You don't have to take the road around, so it's not too hard to get to, but there are bears over there, so you want to be careful and maybe wait until you are prepared to deal with bears. It can be a maybe more challenging landscape to build in, but I always say that makes for much more interesting villages than if you just take the flattest, openest area that you can find. If you're interested in a somewhat isolated, beautiful, wild, natural spot, you could do worse than the lake southeast of Denica. The lake itself is gorgeous, with amazing views of trees and mountains. The area overall is quite natural and unspoiled. Lots of trees, lots of big animals like that pheasant over there. You can build in little clearings like this. There are a number of them around the area, and you could leave it very forested, so have a forest village. There's a creek running from the south to the north, flowing out of the lake. And it's always good to have at least one town somewhere nearby, so you could at least fast travel to other towns. And the town of Denica is about 300 or 400 meters from the lake. For a totally different landscape, there is this swampy, marshy area up in the northeast. It might be interesting to build here, maybe a little spooky if that's what you're looking for. It's full of water, so it's more of a challenging spot to build in. There are lots of little solid islands of land, but they're surrounded by quite a lot of water. The newer walkways that have been added to the game could make this really interesting, with walkways across all of this, the watery bits, and then buildings on the drier bits. It's always interesting to build in a more interesting, non-typical, not perfect landscape. At least I find it interesting. And it's pretty close to at least 2 towns, and not that far from Gostovia. And another lake spot. This is near Hornica, and there's a little creek flowing down to a lovely lake. This is another bit more secluded, a bit more wild, a bit more natural spot. But if you like trees and a rocky landscape and a lake, this is a beautiful little lake. It's much smaller than the other lakes we looked at, but there's plenty of land around it, lots of resources, some pheasant that you can hunt. It's a lovely spot. If you either walk down from Gostovia, which is a pretty walk, you get to see a lot of landscape, or take the wagon and fast travel down to Hornica. You have a little town very nearby if you build around the lake, and you can fast travel to other towns from there. It's remote, it's a bit set away from everything else, but I think you'll agree it is a very beautiful spot. There is also a mine nearby, a cave where you can go inside and mine copper, tin, and salt. But watch out for the bears. There are 2 of them that live near here, and they will mess you up. There is a mine just north of Branica, which makes it actually a pretty attractive place to build. And you can go in the mine even on your very first day and already mine copper and tin and salt. And later on, when you unlock the mine building, you can set your villagers to mining. This is a mine without bears, which is kind of rare on the valley map. A lot of the mines have bears nearby or living in the cave. And it's just in sight of Branica. That's Branica over there. And there are lots of good areas to build around, with a road cutting through and a bit of a hill, but lots of open land. It's probably a great place for a beginner, because having the mine early in the game, very close by, that you can mine yourself, is a huge advantage to get metals, to make metal tools, and good stuff to sell. It's also a pretty interesting landscape. It's a mix of very easy to build areas, which are relatively flat, or at least not obstructed. Then there's this rockier hill up here, and there are nice views from up here as well. And it's very close to not 1, but 3 towns. It's even got a little creek running through it just in front of the mine. It's a really nice spot. I'm curious, so let me know in the comments where you're building on the valley map. If you learned something in this video, if it helped you select a location, give it a thumbs up. If you didn't like it for some reason, give it a thumbs down.
Damn it!
If you'd like to keep up with upcoming quick tips, please subscribe. Remember, your game, your fun, your rules. I hope you're enjoying your medieval dynasty.
Goodbye.